All right, welcome everyone to another live stream. This is a random after Thanksgiving live stream on the Fun with Cars channel. Joined here with Mexican Spec Mod in chat, and got some random things to check in on. Wait a few seconds till maybe some people come on, maybe they don't. But basically, just talking some car things after Thanksgiving, see what everyone's up to, and now I have zero. So maybe we won't have anyone tonight, but it's our first official snow of the season today. The grass is getting pretty thick with snow. My son was out plowing the driveway, just a couple inches, 3 inches or so. If you're new to the chat or you're new to the channel, please check in, say hello in comments, tell us where you're from. Wait for a couple people to get here and then get into some content here. I have an interesting story that I find interesting, very interesting. But some people might think it's gruesome. Some people might think it's sad, but I think it's interesting. So, Mexican Spec, if you're still here, say hi in chat. Maybe a very fast live stream today. But yeah, 81 right now there. Well, it's 27 right now here. And we have a few inches of snow on the ground. First snow of the winter. It's really bad in the south towns going into Erie, PA. They had traffic all jammed up. Hello, Jennifer. Jennifer's joining us today. Just getting into what I wanted to mention today, and we can talk about whatever you guys want. But the one story that came up in my Google feed this week, which is kind of car related, but I found it kind of fascinating, especially to anyone that Lillian is here. Hello, Lillian. Probably interesting to me just because when we drove to Florida from Buffalo, New York area, we drove past it. So I don't know if you guys follow some of my random short videos that I post, but I do want to play one quick for you, and then I'm going to give you some context. And this one's got my signature all over it. If you can't tell that, it would be interesting. And I have my phone on on notifications, so you hear that bell. My daughter is driving home from work, and it's her first time driving in snow, so we're just kind of being a little more observant. She's doing pretty good, and I just want to make sure that she does good with driving in the snow. So without further ado, let me see if I can play this for you. This is my short video, and I'm going to give some context to the next story that ties into it. It's random. It's car related, kind of, and see what you think. I found the story fascinating. It does have a little sad side, but I don't know if it's a closure, we'll say. All right, so here we go. So this is my video. Ready? Out of the South Georgia water called Florida Georgia line. Here's some South Georgia water coming into the Florida Georgia line. All right, so you got that. If you can see that video, I know it's hard to see with the vertical stream, but that video I filmed because I'm not a big country fan, but I know the song from Florida Georgia line, and it talks about, first time we met the girl, she was coming out of the South Georgia water. Well, ironically, we were driving on I-95 heading into Florida on the Florida Georgia line. And this week in my feed, a story came up that they found a missing couple who had been missing for 44 years. They've been missing since 1980 in a town called Brunswick, Georgia. And they found them in their car in a pond directly next to I-95. And I want to show that, yeah, I can show it right here. So it's number 2-1. I'll show you real quick the story, because it does kind of tie in to that, because just before I filmed that, literally 20 minutes before, so we're driving down I-95. My son was driving. I was in the passenger seat, texting, watching the cats and my video cameras at home. And I'm like, where's Brunswick, Georgia? Oh, Brunswick, Georgia. It's right next to and I found this hotel. It's literally right next to the highway, I-95, as you're heading into Florida. And it's interesting in the fact that they thought that there was foul play involved, and literally this is what they saw.
By the window. And it appears to be white in color or silver. And the car we are looking for is a black Lincoln. So this is not the right color. Sometimes it can look different, especially after being underwater for so long. But some of the other features were not lining up with what a Lincoln looked like either. And right here is the door panel between the windows. And you can tell this thing has been down there.
A different view of this, so you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Let me pull that up on the screen here. Hopefully I got the right one. There we go. You ready?
Well, human remains that were recently found submerged in a South Georgia pond are now being connected to the disappearance of a New York couple more than 40 years ago.
I mean, it's kind of a straight shot. If they turned around and they just kept going forward, I think it's a car.
They received a tip from fellow explorers that the roamer's car could be in the pond.
Something kept telling me to come and check this pond.
They decided to dive.
That's over there.
Why don't you just see where you can see the highway, right? It's like literally right on the side.
This is the
right
green
here.
Garmin Duffel 45 liter.
We gotta watch
it. It's a transforming 2-in-1 travel duffel bag for long weekends.
Highway. There's I-95. So we literally drove right there, and this is the pond that they found the car in.
That's something. There. Kind of looks like 2 door windows, isn't it? Upside down.
Upside down.
Anyways, that's my whodunit mystery story that I thought was pretty interesting, seeing that we literally drove past a pond where 2 people unfortunately met their demise 44 years ago. They thought there was foul play involved. It turns out they found what they think is the jewelry that they thought the original reason for their disappearance was they're retired couple in their 70s from New York, Long Island area, not by me, like 7 hours from here. And their newer Lincoln and their jewelry, everything is all gone. So they thought foul play was involved, that they were robbed for their jewelry or his wife's jewelry, and then the car was missing and they were never heard from or seen again. Their hotel room was untouched and unwinding. It was a Lincoln that they were in. They were in a newer Lincoln, like a year or 2 old Lincoln, 78, I think. Later on in that story, they show what the car looks like coming out of the water. I should have probably pulled through to that too, huh? But the when they actually drained the pond out to make it easier for them to see and pull the car out. And yeah, that I got it here now. So let me see if I can let me see if I can pull this up on the screen. If you guys don't mind, I'll show you what it looked like. There we go. And here we go.
Hold that other object ended up being the Romer's Lincoln Continental.
Authorities excavate this Lincoln Continental after it was discovered just days ago, submerged in an unassuming Georgia pond right off one of the East Coast's busiest highways. Inside, human remains.
So we literally drove on that highway. My son drove on that highway right next to it, where that pond was, and people were missing. It's a very, very highly traveled road. So if you drive down the East Coast to Florida, you go down I-95 in most cases. You take the I-95 into Florida from Georgia. For years, I mean, millions of people have driven past that car with missing persons in the car. But I know it's not a happy ending to a story, but after 44 years, one can only imagine, you know, what the family, what happened to our grandparents, right? So they found them, and it probably, my guess, and it just is based off of history with other vehicles in the same circumstance, is the fact that when you take a car with power windows and submerge it in water, especially with an older car where you can't get out of the car as easily, you have the pressure of the water holding the doors closed, and it literally makes it impossible to open doors. And the fact that you can't roll the windows down if the electrical system shorts out, you can't get out of the car. It becomes a trap. And that's why they sell a little tool that you can put on your key ring for circumstances like that, that has a seatbelt cutter and a small hammer to bust safety glass. And it looks just like a little hammer with a point on it. And if you smash safety glass with it, the window will shatter, and then you can climb out the window. That's the reason for them having it. But I don't know. That was my little story. I know it's kind of a random story to have, but I kind of was. Oh, you guys are not able to see it? Yeah, so Jennifer heard about it, and they did find the jewelry. They found a bag with jewelry in it. They said at the time of the disappearance, she was known to wear like $80,000 worth of jewelry, and in today's dollars, it would be like $600,000 worth of jewelry, which is insane to me. But they were of means. Obviously, Lincolns were like, you know, the car to have back in the late 70s. And they found the bag of jewelry. Now, how much was left, or, you know, if it was all, I'm assuming it's all corroded. I don't know if gold doesn't really corrode on the bottom of a freshwater pond necessarily, but interesting enough, at least to their family, that they were found. And tragically, it was probably just a case of they went out to dinner, maybe had a few, I'm surmising that maybe they had a few drinks, and when he went back to the hotel, he either missed a turn, hit the wrong pedal, whatever, ended up in the water, and the car sunk and became a trap, and they died in the car. So, interesting story to me, at any rate. What do you guys got? Anything? Max said, my aunt said she didn't get power windows for that reason. Yeah, that's one of the cases. If in the case of an emergency, and especially in waterborne areas, if you drive through a flooded road, you a lot of times lose the electrical system and cannot operate the power windows. So, not that I recommend driving any car in water, even with cranked windows, but that's something that can happen, right? Lillian said it's a sad story. Oh, I'll get back to you, Max. It's a sad story, but in the end, they've at least found what happened to their loved ones, right? And you live in the San Fernando Valley, there was no standing water anywhere. How about people that drown in their cars in Arizona? I've heard of this story. I don't have an example, but while we're on the topic, my understanding is that there can be flash rain in the mountains, in the high mountains above the desert, and then there's large amounts of water that come through the desert, and you could drive along, run into these streams that go across the road, and then get caught up in that. You ever hear of that? You guys live on the West Coast. I'm not that familiar. I've only been to Arizona a couple times, so. I agree with that, but there's just like any fine jewelry, you would have some kind of corrosion or a coating on the metals that would need to be cleaned off. But interesting enough, should be as good as today. I'm sure it's worth all that and then some. Not that obviously somebody that loses their loved ones doesn't want to hear that, but the fact is nobody robbed them, it appears. It was an accident, tragic accident, rather than they met their fate at the hands of a gunman or something like that, something crazy. Max got, my aunt had a 76 Plymouth Volare. My sister, I think, had a Volare, but not a wagon. Remember, the ultimate gauge bounces when the turn signal was on. Because of that, she only used turn signal when she started moving to the left and turn lane. Well, that's interesting. I think the gauges back then were a little bit more sensitive, and I know on our 03 Yukon, when we had it, there was a service bulletin for 03, 04 vehicles. You could see the headlights dim and get bright as maybe it wasn't just on the Yukon, but it was in that generation of GM vehicles. There was a service bulletin. The alternator would be turned on and off by the engine control module as it needed more amperage or voltage for the system. So you did see that in more modern vehicles with that setup. And on those old Plymouth gauges, Dodge Mopar gauges, I had a 71 Plymouth Duster, and that did have an alternator. I can't say that the only light I ever really worried about is the amp light or the alternator light coming on, because if the light turned on, it meant it wasn't charging at all. If you start the car, you see a battery on a modern vehicle, you see the battery on your dashboard. When you start the car and it sees voltage, the battery light goes out, telling you that it's charging. Now, it doesn't tell you how much it's charging unless you have an ammeter or a voltage gauge. But generally speaking, most modern vehicles, if the alternator is on and charging, you're not going to have a problem most of the time. And just parentheses, most of the time, right? Because there are situations where you could lose a leg of the alternator, or the internal windings of the alternator, and it might not charge at its full normal ability. So the accessories may exceed what the alternator is putting out, and it would drain your battery slowly. That occasion is fairly rare, but it can happen. But keeping it general, and in most cases, if you start your car up and the battery light goes out, your alternator's on and you're good to go. Most cases. So Jumper's got to say here a couple times a year when a senior drives into water or some idiot on their cell phone. Yes, we had one here. I was talking. Two of my buddies are retired police officers, and they worked a lot of the cold cases, and one was captain of homicide, one was captain of narcotics. Anyways, to make a long story short, they had some cold cases, but I just had a conversation with them because my one buddy automatically suspected foul play and kind of went down that route. And I said, but if they're in the car and they find no evidence, he's like, well, you might get the tox reports. I said, toxicology reports are probably not going to be valid, 44 years later. I think a lot of what would be lost over time, you have the bones, obviously you get bone marrow, DNA and all that stuff from that, but all the soft tissues are long since gone. Unless there was holes in their skulls or something, or damage to their bones from, say, bullet wounds or whatever, one would have to think that they drove into the car. For somebody to rob them, and then, you could rob them and then put the car in a gear. Now, it would be interesting to see, and this is something that, as long as they didn't mess with the car, would be interesting to see if the car was in, reverse or park, or, what the vehicle selector was in. So if the vehicle, let's say they drove into the pond, they couldn't get out or trying to get out, and he's trying to get the keys out or whatever, he puts it back in the park. So I guess either way, they would be able to tell if the shifter selector was in a different gear than what the direction of the car was going into the pond, then they would probably have a good idea whether or not they were alive when they went into the pond. Just a side thought. Just a side thought. How was everyone's Thanksgiving, by the way? I didn't get into that. We talked on Lillian's channel. She had a lot of good stuff today, but I didn't get into how everyone's Thanksgiving was. What do you guys do? Max, do you guys celebrate Thanksgiving in Mexico? Because it's an American holiday, as far as I know, right? There weren't any pilgrims and Mexicans in back in the day, right? Well, the turn signals definitely draw from the battery, no doubt. Turn signal, and I don't want to get overly technical, but everyone's familiar with a fuse, right? If your electrical load exceeds the amount of voltage or amperage, let's talk correctly here. The amount of amperage for a fuse, let's say something shorts out and it draws too much power, it blows the fuse. Conversely, just like that, a circuit breaker, which most modern homes have circuit breakers, which is essentially a switch that gets shut off if the amperage exceeds what that circuit is meant to have, and it turns off the circuit breaker. So if you have a tripped breaker, the breaker is no longer making contact. You open your electrical panel and you see one switch that's a little off, and you're like, yeah, that's the one for the living room. Switch it back on, and voila, if there was something on it that caused an intermittent excessive amount of amperage draw to cause that circuit breaker to. Now, the reason I mention this is because a turn signal flasher is a controlled circuit breaker. And what I mean by that is, if they know when you turn your left turn signal on, I'm getting a little bit into electrical theory and to keep it simplified and not speak in circles, essentially they know how much amperage the circuit should draw with 2 turn signal bulbs. So you turn your turn signal on, it draws an amount of electricity. Electricity ramps up, like with electric motors. When you turn on the power and with incandescent bulbs, the power comes up and then amperage is used. Once it exceeds the amount of amperage for the circuit or hovers around there, a circuit breaker shuts off, flasher shuts off. It cools a second and then makes contact again. That's your tick, 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 tick. So it's basically becoming a switch and turning on and off the lights. That's why when you have a bulb blowout, when you have a bulb that fails, so one of the turn signal bulbs fails, and you turn your turn signal on, it flashes real fast, like a strobe light, because the load on the circuit is incorrect. So, and forgive me if I don't remember exactly how it works, but I thought it had something to do with bimetal. So the contacts in the flasher are bimetal. So similar to like a thermostat for a cooling system, the bimetal part, when electricity flows through it, it bends it or gets hot, and then it bends it one way. And then when it cools, it bends the other way. And that's the switch going on and off. It's like you turning the switch on and off for your flashers. Jennifer said, was all right. Door knocked out by 3 teenage boys having a pillow fight. Oh, this is I missed something here. Well, hopefully, we're talking about Thanksgiving here, right? So Mex had some chicken and was good. That's good. I didn't see her Instagram post. I don't even know if I'm on Instagram, quite honestly. I just joined one of those other things because I was following Lillian's suggestion about putting information out and contacting some of the companies that I use their products all the time, namely Rust-Oleum. Trying to get a Rust-Oleum sponsorship because I do use a lot of Rust-Oleum products on my videos, and I did not hear anything. But they did require, I could not submit with just a YouTube. I had to have YouTube, and I think it was Instagram, but I only posted a couple little things on there just so I had something, and that's as far as I went with it. And that was a few weeks ago. So I'm not really an Instagram. I guess I'm just too old. Oh, you guys are talking about pillow fights. So anyways, right now we have about 3 inches of snow. So it's 81 there in Mexico. It's 27 in Buffalo. And my son plowed the driveway. My wife shoveled the front sidewalk. And Jennifer's kids are cleaning up the mess they made from their pillow fight. Oh, at least they're having fun. There could be a lot worse things they could be doing, right? So, anyways, you got anything else story-wise? I did pull up the Jaguar. I was gonna share that. I could only the Jaguar situation. Monday is the go live portion of the new unveil for the car that they have, or SUV, and I'm not sure that what I found on Road and Track or whatever I pulled this information from about their new Jaguar. I was told that they're going with 3 electric SUVs, and their I-Pace hasn't been doing well already, and that's an electric vehicle, and I don't know. I think they're in big trouble. Well, that's boys in general, Jennifer. The son and her nephews got together. It's loud. It's boys just being boys. And we got Mike saying it's warm where you are in comparison. Oh, we're talking about this. A couple of days ago. What? Oh, you're on a live stream with Scott. Okay. Who's Scott, Mex? What's his handle on YouTube? Because was that Shopcat? Because I don't know Shopcat's first name. But he's in Alberta, and it gets real cold up there. They're in the north part of Canada. So anyways, I'm gonna cut it for this week. Thanks to everyone for coming involved. I gotta go get my daughter, so have a good day. Oh, she's home? Never mind. All right, give me anyways, I don't have anything else for the stream anyways, but I thought I was getting a call. My wife had just come downstairs to tell me that my daughter got home okay, so that's good. So her first drive solo, it would be like your instrument rating in a small airplane. First time you drive on snow it's a little different than driving. Everyone probably knows that here. Maybe not Lillian. Lillian, did you have any snow when you were driving in Russia? Was that a thing? I wanted Lillian to come on the show to talk about driving when she was a kid, but she wouldn't do it. So, but yeah, I know. I'll try to stay warm. Lillian said stay warm in the snow. Oh, Jennifer, your son was driving first time in the snow too? I think we talked about this. I thought your son is close in age to my daughter. My daughter's in her senior year. Oh, Lillian used public transportation in Russia. Did you had family members driving though, right? At any time, Lillian? Man, I wish Lillian would come on and talk to us about that, because I find that stuff fascinating. The only thing that I know of life in the Soviet Union and Russia was from Western news agencies. And let's just say, especially based on, how do I dance around this topic? Let's just say I don't necessarily have the best faith in the Western news organizations about accuracy. Oh, yeah. So your youngest is 18 and your oldest is 27, Jennifer, right? Roger that. The Punked. Can you show? All right. Oh, hey, Berlin. Kapunked. I have something for you, sir. But it's not near Berlin. I tried to get a hold of a museum in Germany recently. So my sister-in-law's dad was in World War II, right? So his unit during World War II ended up in a part of Germany, West Germany, right? But on the West and East Germany border. And in the town that he was photographed in, and this relates. So your handle is Kapunked, right? In this picture is him in his uniform with his rifle and his puppy named Kaputt, which in German, and I took 5 years of German, but trust me, I can't say much to you. Ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch. I'll tell you that. Kapunked. His dog's name was Kaputt, and I tried reaching out because in the town, which is a border town between East and West Germany, not East and West Berlin, but East and West Germany, tried to get them to tell me whether or not they know where that house was that he's photographed next to, and if he is, or if it's still there, the address, so I could get a picture of it. My sister-in-law, I talked to her. I said, wouldn't it be amazing if you took a tour of Germany and got to go where your dad was photographed 70 years ago, 80 years ago? I just I find that history amazing, We'll take out DDR and GDR, which is East and West Germany, Deutschland, right? DDR, I thought, was East Germany. The Democratic, or Deutsch, Kaput, what does DDR stand for? DDR and GDR. And I on this channel, I stay away from, political ideologies and all that stuff. It's mainly fun car stuff. And I do have some, I do have a little bit of Porsche content. I got Volvo content. So I do have some viewers that watch from Europe. But the farthest I ever got into Europe was England, sadly. But I'd love to see Germany and Poland. My grandparents were originally from Poland. And I would love to see further into Asia and Africa. It's a pipe dream at this point, but okay. The German Democratic Republic. That's the GDR, right? Now, what I found interesting, I'm just going to touch on this because we're still here talking. I follow a young lady that has a YouTube channel, Feely from Germany, and she talks about her experience because she grew up in Germany, and I'm gonna tie this into Lillian. Lillian, are you still here? Yes. So Lillian, yesterday I said, when you did your live stream, you were looking for topics. I said, why don't you talk about instances where when you immigrated to the United States, what you found different, interesting, or although you're a language specialist, so English is very strong to you, and Lillian teaches Russian to English speakers and vice versa. But I'm sorry. When John F. Kennedy went to West Germany, right, back when the wall was still up, the Berlin Wall, he said to a crowd of people, "Ich bin ein Berliner." As I remember learning in German class, that "Ich bin ein Berliner" means I'm a jelly donut. Essentially, that's the literal translations of that. And to people who were in Berlin at the time, they understood what he was trying to say, but he literally said, "I'm a jelly donut." And I thought that Lillian could share us some interesting conversations when, she was speaking with native English speakers as a native Russian speaker, being bilingual. And obviously there's different slangs and sayings. Like, we learned German in German class was proper. We used to have German pen pals, and we'd write letters. We'd write in German, they write in English, and our teacher would grade us and help us with what we were writing. I would love to find out whatever happened with my German pen pal from way back when. I know this is off car topic, but it's, I don't know. I find the human connection and the connection to different people around the world very interesting. Maybe I'm the only one. I know this is a car channel, and we're really, supposedly talking about cars, and I'd love to. But Kapunkt, what kind of vehicle do you drive? And BMWs in BMWs in Germany, Deutschland, not BMW in America. BMWs in America are considered a luxury brand, but it's my understanding that BMWs, which is BMW, in Germany, are an everyday kind of car. It's not, you're not like, oh, look at me, I'm driving a BMW. It's like, I need a good car to get to work. I'm going to get a BMW. The Bavarian Motor Works is what BMW stands for. And here they're considered a luxury vehicle, but in Germany, it's considered like an everyman vehicle or woman. Sorry, let's not be sexist here, right? But so Lillian, truth be told, there was a good segment where you just started to get into some good content that I had some flack from the wife. She was trying to tell me something important. I had to quiet down the stream, so I got to go back and watch the stories that you told. Probably I got to the best part of it, and then I had to mute it while I was finishing up business at home. So anyways, so this town in Germany, I'd love to find, I hope they respond to me. I don't know. Is it Kapunkt, if you're still here, is it like traditional or natural for, I don't know, lately here, it's usually like traditional, like you respond right away. But my buddy's like, oh, it's going to Germany. And I did write my email in German. I used Google Translate, my favorite. Lillian loves when I do that. I probably swore at him in German because I don't trust Google Translate that much. When I had customers from Eastern Europe, specifically Russian speakers, and I would, try to play nice and, use Russian. I'd Google it, use a translate, and then I'd say hello to them in what I thought was proper Russian, and then they'd look at me like, I have a blue dog? What? And, it made no sense. But have I heard of the band Rammstein? So I've heard of Rammstein Air Base. My nephew was stationed there. But I have not specifically heard of the band Rammstein. If I did, like, the only German band that I could think of, and I don't know if it's Rammstein, Du Hast nicht, right? You remember those? I just remember the words of the song. You have not. Anyways, not to get too carried away, but I appreciate Kaput being here. Kaput. Kaput's my sister-in-law's dad's dog. So, Jennifer, you know the song Du Hast. Who sings it? Kaput asked about the band Rammstein. I should look it up. The only thing I know the airbase Rammstein. My nephew was stationed there. My brother-in-law, when he got injured in the Middle East, was sent there for medical purposes. And so that's the only, I know there's a big air show there. It's a big, Luftwaffe Air Force base that, I'm just going to say the word NATO because everyone knows NATO. Many people like German are because Hitler pronounced R. So many people like German R because Hitler pronounced R. I'm not tracking necessarily what you mean by that, Kaput. The Lillian's saying it's a very popular band in Europe. You're talking Rammstein, right? And so it is Rammstein. Okay. So I was right. That's the only song that I know, and it is by Rammstein. And Interesting. So I'm learning here too. And did I ask you, Kapunk, where you're in Berlin, right? You're in Berlin right now, or you're from Berlin? Now, Lillian, if you start telling me that you know German too, that's 4 languages, and that would be crazy. I can barely speak English. So you're in Berlin. Now, historically, the part of Berlin that you're in, is it east or west where you physically live? And now that the wall is gone, I remember being in German class, if that gives you away my age. So I'm in German class when the Berlin Wall fell. That was my, I'm glad that blanked out. But my German teacher was from Germany. Her parents were immigrated from Germany. And that was something that they never thought was going to happen. Do you guys see the stream blanking out like that? Because it did it like once or twice. So either I got a computer issue or that was weird. But when the Berlin Wall fell, they all found it astonishing. They never thought that she never thought she'd see it. So you were born in East Berlin. Yeah, I might have some internet things going on. I apologize for that. So you're born in East Berlin. Kapunk, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to give away, were you born before or after the Berlin Wall fell? I find that interesting, very interesting, actually. Am I still frozen, Jennifer? My computer's doing some weird things, so I apologize for that. Could be my internet. The kids are home now, so they could be both on the internet. Oh, so you're old enough to remember it. It had to be pretty monumental thing in Germany when that occurred. For me, now I've never been to Germany, but I had a connection because we learned about Germany, and in German class, our teacher was like just absolutely, astounded by the fact that the Berlin Wall fell, right? So that it's just something that they never, I still remember it. Like we talked about the wall, we talked about how families were separated, if you lived on this side of the street and your cousins lived on the other side of the street, when they put the wall down the middle and you were just, that was it. And I work with a guy that works on the border in Berlin, at a checkpoint between East and West Germany, and very interesting stuff, right? So you staying out of the geopolitical arena, it's very interesting. Lillian thinks the heavy snow could be affecting the internet. I guess possibly, but we're on Spectrum, so we got cable internet. But who knows? This is the 4th time I turned 12 years old. I say that specific reason, but I'm 48. Kapunk. Lillian thinks I'm barging into politics. Well, it's interesting stuff. You got a gentleman here that was born in East Berlin. That's kind of huge. Lillian, can I tell them where you were born, where you grew up? Is that above board? Yes, we're talking geopolitical things. So the internet makes the world a smaller and smaller place, and I find a lot of channels that do. So I like Bald and Bankrupt. Now, I've heard different stories about him. I'm not getting into him. I like what he does. I get to see different areas of the world that I never would dream of going to visit, and he goes through them, and shows you a different side of things. That people are people, right? No matter where you're from, what side of a political, upbringing you had, people are people. All right, so you turned 40. Oh, I just blinked out again. So hopefully you didn't lose me. Punk was born in 84. Lillian was born in Siberia. So Lillian, I know I can't read Cyrillic either. So if the Lillian's name is all this up here, it says something like, "Fun with cars is the greatest thing since sliced bread." That's what that means in Cyrillic. That's what Lillian named her channel. So, anyways, Lillian said, "For East Germany, it wasn't such a good thing like this dismantling of the Soviet Union." What I missed the context of that, Lillian. Get me back on track. What wasn't as good? Wasn't a good thing when the Berlin Wall fell, or when the Berlin Wall went up? I'm assuming on either side of that. Yeah, I know, but it cuts out, and I can't pull it all up here. I'll learn to speak English. I can see it in chat, but I can't. It doesn't pull up when I do that. So when the Berlin Wall fell, or when the Berlin Wall went up, either way, it wasn't good. Dawson just joined us. Dawson's in Ohio, in the United States. Welcome, Dawson. And if I remember correctly, Dawson, you're near Dayton, Ohio, or Columbus, one of the two. Dayton. So if you're into aviation, now you mentioned the band Ramstein Air Base. Dayton has the Air Force Museum in it, and it's a must-see, even if you aren't into aviation. It is my favorite museum in the entire world, hands down. Hands down. So Kapunkt, his parents sympathized with the Russians. So you have a different political way of doing things. So different economies, right? You have a demand economy and a command economy. As I understood it, that's how the Soviet bloc operated. We're dicing into politics again, Lillian. I'm sorry, but a different way of thinking, a different way of doing things. And as Americans, I can only speak for myself in this, we learn that, the way that it was done on the other side was not as good. And we can argue the point, it doesn't matter. It's just different. And learning, we didn't learn exactly how it was different and how it worked. And now, 30, 40 years later, it's interesting to find out different things, even from building cars, right? So like the Westlink is great, but it's tough for Germans, not so black and white, right? Well, it's definitely a different time. So Germany after World War II was split up between the East and the West, essentially. And I know, like similarly, the divide between North and South Korea, there was a pretty big divide between East and West Germany. Right? So definitely a different way of doing things. Dawson's not into aviation. Oh, well, space, that's good. They do have a whole space section at the museum. And you're looking at being an astrologist when you get older? That's cool. Hey, Max, thanks for coming by. Go make some videos. He's got some cool stuff. He's saying goodbye. So, funny story on this, Elaine. So, yes, East Germany and Russia, it was the same part of that was, to us in the West, was the same base of the Soviet bloc and East Germany. That was all part of the Soviet bloc. I could be wrong. I mean, so if you're looking from us versus them, right? If you're looking at a point of us versus them, just like we may not get along with Canada or Mexico or whatever here in the United States, but to somebody that is the opponent or the other side of the United States, Canada and Mexico were friends, right? So I think that's how the association was with East Germany and Russia. But Lillian, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you coming in. And complaint. So it was politically desired. Yeah. So I have a I don't know, a funny story, but one of the things that I did years ago, about 10 years ago, there was a story where some missile silos in the United States for ICBMs were offline because of a power outage, a major power outage in the Midwest, right? And when that occurred, there was a hyperlink in the story for missile silos. So I clicked on it and I started reading and got into like, oh, I wonder if there's ever any missile silos in New York State, where I am, right? State of New York. And up near my in-laws on the New York-Vermont border, there was old missile silos that were decommissioned in like 1964. They like built them in 1960 and they were already obsolete by 1964. This is in the height of the Cold War, US versus Russia, right? And anyways, I found a website for a guy that bought one of them and was like refurbishing it to like he was from Australia and refurbishing it into like a living quarters, and it's a missile silo underground. The silo itself, where the missile was housed, and obviously the missile's not there anymore, was 187 feet deep. And anyways, to make a long story short, I contacted him and Kapunk, I am in the Buffalo, New York, Niagara Falls region. So let me see if I can put up my banner here. It's down here. It's in the bottom. That's my email. If you have anything, your car or anything you get into, email me. The Buffalo, New York. So we're known for buffalo chicken wings. So if you ever heard buffalo wings, or I don't know if they're called that in Germany or if they even have chicken wings in Germany, but they were invented. That's Buffalo's claim to fame. Niagara Falls is an adjacent city. It's about 40 minutes from here. So it's about 20 minutes from Buffalo. And Niagara Falls, New York, and there's Niagara Falls, Canada. We're right on the Canadian border. That's where I live. So if that, in terms of the globe, makes any sense. 1:03 a.m. 1:03 a.m. in Deutschland. That's cool. Must be a late night. You're going, well, it's still, so it's actually Sunday morning in Germany. Kapunk, what, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? Is it anything car related, or what do you do on the daily? I'm interested in that kind of stuff too. Dawson said that besides being astrology, you want to get maybe astronomy teacher. Dawson, are you in college yet, or are you still in high school? My feed, I think, keeps bumping in and out, but Kapunk, do you want to take a look at? I'm going to see if I can find. I had this in the live stream. A couple of. I don't know if it was there. I'm trying to find the picture of that town. No. Oh, well. I guess I'm not going to be able to find it. So I'm going to wrap it up. It's been an hour here, right on the nose. Appreciate everyone coming down today. Jennifer, thanks for coming in. I didn't even think I was going to do this live stream, but it's a good night to stay inside, and I only, worked on the project vehicle for a little bit today. Hey, Kapunk, thank you very much for being here. It was nice talking with you, and I appreciate you sharing some stuff about yourself. Please come back next week. We do this usually once a week. So, Jennifer, thank you. And Kapunk, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and we'd love to catch up again. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.